everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to the next part in my week-long effort to try and lose all of my subscribers. This is a video that I have been meaning to do for a while, but I have been putting it off because I knew that it would not end well for me. But there's no more putting it off. It is happening tonight, so let's go ahead and do it. This is my pre-Geekout reaction to the new Ghostbusters film. Now, you might be wondering what the heck that means. On this channel, we have a show called the Post-Geekout Reaction, where after I have watched a movie or a television series or anything else from the world of geekery, I come in and it's not a review, it's not a video where I sit down and think everything out and write out a script for it. It's just an open, honest discussion. It's just my honest feelings right after I experience this thing. But a couple months back, when Batman vs. Superman was coming out, I looked at that and I went, you know what, there's been such a huge build up to this. I've been covering this thing for so long, and there have been so many opinions and so many voices on this going back and forth on it, and I don't really know how I feel about it. So I'm gonna go and see the film. Let's just make a pre-geek out reaction where I just tell you all how I feel about this film and where I'm coming from before I go and see it, so that when I do make my review on, you can kind of understand where I'm coming from. And I honestly didn't really plan on ever doing another one of these again, but with this new Ghostbusters film, this is probably one of the most debated films I have seen in a long, long time. I have seen so many emotions, so many just very passionate opinions about this film, that I feel like I need to come in and kind of let you know where I stand on the issue. Because, as I said, this is something that I have been putting off. I did not want to make a video talking about Ghostbusters, and it's not because I looked at this thing and went, oh, I'm 100% opposed to this thing. It's because when it comes to the world of YouTube and the world of covering everything from the world of geekery, the new Ghostbusters film is the Kobayashi Maru. It is that thing in which there is no way to win this. There are so many heated opinions on this thing that if you come in and say, yeah, I don't think it looks that good, then people are saying, oh, well, then you're just a fanboy of the old one, or you're sexist. And if you come in and say, oh, no, I think it looks really good, then people are going to come in and go, oh, you're just pandering to this audience and you don't understand the brilliance of the previous one. It's something in which if you come down right in the middle of this, you're just going to offend both sides. I kind of come down right on the middle of this one. Was I a fan of the original Ghostbusters movie? Yeah, absolutely. I love that movie. That is one of those movies that when I was a kid just blew my mind, and I've gone back and watched it as an adult, and watching it as an adult I realized it wasn't just my nostalgia speaking. This was a truly great film. It had great comedy, great writing, was so witty, very imaginative, with some great characters. Second one, I'll admit, doesn't really hold up. I know a lot of people who really enjoy the second one, and I think some of that might be their nostalgia speaking. Yeah, the second one I don't think holds up, but the very idea of the Ghostbusters and that property, even beyond that first movie, I've still really enjoyed because, like I said, I saw that first film when I was a kid, but I was also a massive fan of the real Ghostbusters cartoon. I loved that cartoon as a kid. That was one of those cartoons that shaped my childhood. So yeah, I'm kind of attached to the Ghostbusters. So I do have some opinions about the idea of them remaking the Ghostbusters. And that opinion is just simply, don't do it. I'm not coming in here and saying, don't do it with this cast, you should do it with another cast. No, just don't remake the Ghostbusters. I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people are very passionate about this remake, it's not just because they feel an attachment to the Ghostbusters. I'm sure there's that. But it's also because people are just getting tired of so many remakes and sequels that are coming out over a decade after the film came out. They're getting so tired of Hollywood just putting out there the same stuff. And Ghostbusters, I think, for many people, is that breaking point. Because there are a lot of movies out there that you can remake. There are a lot of movies that they're timeless and they can fit, and you could reinterpret them for a modern era, and you could put new characters in there in those roles. But when it comes to Ghostbusters, that is one of those films that you just can't remake. You can't do it. You can make a sequel. You can make something that continues the legacy, brings in new characters like that, but the idea of remaking it kind of would, by the very nature of it, lose a lot of what made that first one work, because that film was absolutely an 80s movie. It totally was. I know a lot of people look at it as like, no, it's timeless. It is, you know, it fits in any era. But the stuff that made it work was stuff that was really popular back in the 80s. Because when you look at the Ghostbusters themselves, yes, they're scientists and they're brilliant people, but they don't act like scientists, aside from Egon. But the rest of them, they just act like average Joes. They act like exterminators. They act like plumbers. And back in the 80s, there was a craze of the average Joe hero, you know, that die-hard hero, in which it was like, you know, they weren't like Commando, they weren't like, you know, Rambo. They were like guys who was like, you know what, if I went to the gym a couple times, I could be that guy. Guys who looked like they worked 9 to 5 jobs. And that was kind of the inspiration for why the Ghostbusters were interpreted that way. Whereas today, that's not really a popular thing anymore. And also back in the 80s, the big thing going on, not just in film, but in the real world, was kind of this resurgence of religion. And I'm not, sorry if I had to take a gulp right there. It makes it sound like I was saying that kind of disgust, like, religion. No, not at all. Just badly timed saliva. But thank you, Motorcycle Outside, by the way. By the way, for anybody who's new to the post-Geekout reaction, we like to record them here on the thinking couch, which is right next to the open window. But yeah, the other thing that really defined the Ghostbusters as being an 80s film was back in the 80s, religion was making a resurgence because when you look at the political atmosphere at the time, the more conservative parties really needed something to rally people around, and they chose religion as a thing of like, oh, we need to get this back out there. We need to start teaching this in schools again. We need to get this on television again. And that's why back in the 80s, you couldn't turn past 3 channels without seeing a televangelist out there telling you that the end of days was coming. It was coming. And when you look at films from back around the late 70s and early 80s, there were tons of possession films or apocalyptic films or demon films. There were so many movies like that, and Ghostbusters was that film where the average Joe heroes stepped up to the apocalyptic end of days scenario and said, no, screw you, we're not doing that. Forget that. And it was kind of a metaphor for all those people who were kind of just sick of seeing that everywhere. So that was totally a message from that time period. However, if you look at modern day films and what's popular right now, it's superheroes. It's not just, you know, like Captain America and Superman and Batman. I mean, like, actually just that feeling of being a superhero. And when I look at the trailers for this film, you see them at some big climactic explosive battle in Times Square, which is very reminiscent of many of the big superhero films that we've gotten recently. And they're not just going in there with proton packs, they're going in there with like guns, they're going in there with like gauntlets that punch the ghost. I'm like, you're reinterpreting the Ghostbusters as superheroes. And again, I've not seen this. The whole point of this video is just to let you know my concerns and my feelings going into the movie before I see it. And the feeling that I'm getting is that they're trying to turn them into superheroes. And as I said, kind of the appeal of Ghostbusters is they were just average people. They were kind of like 9 to 5 people. This was their job. And the moment you turn them into superheroes, it's like, that's not what we really loved about these characters. And the other reason why I'm just opposed to the very idea of remaking Ghostbusters is simply because the idea of Ghostbusters isn't special. And hold on before anybody jumps on me and says, what do you mean it's not special? I'm not saying that the movie wasn't special. I'm saying the idea of a team of people who go out there and bust ghosts is not, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting. You could do some cool stuff with that, but just the idea in and of itself doesn't sell that film. It was not that idea that got people to see that movie, and it's not that idea that made it a classic, that made people love it. The thing that made people love that film was Harold Ramis, Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray. It was those 4 guys. You could have gotten those 4 guys in there as anything. They could have been scuba divers. They could have been just regular exterminators. They could have been real estate agents. They could have been anything, and you would have loved that film because those 4 guys were that film. As I said, I'm opposed to you remaking this film because you can't bring those 4 guys back. No matter who you got in there, it wouldn't be those guys. It would not be the people who made you love Ghostbusters. And as I said, I would kind of be okay with them making an extension, a sequel, you know, something set many years down the line in which, like, you know, Dan Aykroyd is like the last living Ghostbuster and he has to train the new generation, because then you're still acknowledging those guys, you're still acknowledging that they exist, and you're also kind of acknowledging you can never replace them. You're still acknowledging that they had that spot. And of course, then you also kind of get the, you know, passing of the mantle moment. You kind of get that moment in which they're kind of saying, okay, our time existed back then, and now we're okay with this. It would have made it a little bit easier. I'm still not totally okay with that idea, but I would have been a little bit more okay with it, I guess. But as I said, I'm completely opposed to the idea of them remaking Ghostbusters, but this thing's coming out tomorrow. It's not like they're going to just stop this thing. It's happened. It's existing. We have to deal with it. We have to face reality, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, based on the trailers that I've seen, and based on everything that I've heard about this film, it looks okay. It doesn't look great to me, but to all the people out there saying this looks like absolute garbage, it looks like the worst thing, I will fully admit, that first trailer looked terrible to me. It looked really darn bad to me. But the trailers that came after that, I was like, you know what? This isn't too bad. And I didn't want to make a video about it. If you'll notice, I cover everything from the world of geekery on this channel. And so many of you are probably wondering, why have you not covered Ghostbusters up until now? As I said, part of it was just because I was like, yeah, man, there's no way to win on this. I'm just going to end up offending somebody on both sides with my opinions on it. But the other reason why was just simply because I saw the massive hate for this. And as I said, I understand that people were defensive about this. But at the same time, I think that when you get hatred to that point, the smart thing to do is to back away and just let it die down. Don't go in there and try and add to that pile. For anybody who watches the comic book shows that we do every single Wednesday on this channel, you know that a couple months ago, when the whole Captain America is secretly an agent of Hydra thing came out, I didn't make a video coming out and saying, well, let's examine this, let's look at the problems of this, and let's talk about why people are mad about this. I was going to do that, but then I heard about all the death threats that the people working on that book were receiving, and I heard about how the editor of that book had to delete her entire email because it was just loaded with people sending her pictures of dead bodies. I went, all right, you know what, screw it. I don't care if the people who are mad about this have a valid reason to be upset about this. It's gone too far. Everybody needs to calm the fudge down on this. And that's kind of how I felt about Ghostbusters, because yeah, I did not like that first trailer. But when I saw the second one, I was like, you know what, this is actually a little bit better. And then I saw the downvotes on it, I was like, wow, it's even more hated than the first one. It's definitely not worse than the first one. Heck, this isn't even worse than like the Jim and the Holograms trailer, which was an absolute total betrayal of that property. That one even had more upvotes than this one. It's gone to that point in which the hatred is just running so rampant for this thing that they could come out here with a truly great film, with a film that will blow you away, and there's still a massive group of people out there who would hate it no matter what. I don't want to go in there and add to that. And I know that some people out there are saying, well, hey man, I might have hated this, but I was not, you know, I might have ranted about this all over the place, but I wasn't, you know, sending death threats to people. True, but you have to ask yourself, you might not have lit the fire, but were you standing over to the edge with a giant fan just blowing that flame up? Because a lot of the times just adding to the hatred gets the people who are already upset to get even more upset. And I feel like that's why sometimes you just have to back off from these things. Because yeah, this is another one of those times where people were sending out death threats about this, and I was like, guys, it's a movie about people busting ghosts. I don't care what it meant to you as a kid. That is insane. If you were going to send a death threat to another living human being over something like this. So that's one of those reasons why I just didn't make any videos about this, because I was like, no, I'm just gonna wait for this all to blow over. I'm gonna go down to the Winchester, grab a pint, wait for all this to blow over. But I feel like now that anger is finally starting to die down. You know, this movie's coming out in like a few hours. It's actually getting some pretty good reviews so far. So I feel like most of that anger has finally started to die down. Don't get me wrong, there is a good, I would almost say 20% of people out there who are just going to hate this no matter what, and they're always going to be angry about it. And don't tell me that those people don't exist. I've seen them. I don't mean I saw them on the internet. I mean, they've come into my store. For anybody out there who is saying, oh, you know, the people who are upset about, they have legitimate reasons to be angry about this. Don't get me wrong, some of them do have legitimate reasons, but there are some people out there who are just hating this because it's all women. And I know that because there have been multiple people come into my store and just lose their mind when that came up. When Ghostbusters came up, they lost their, sorry for cursing, but they lost their shit. They just started ranting and raving there, and it was about the fact that it was women. So it's like, okay, these assholes do exist. So I do know that there's about 20% of people out there who they're just gonna hate this no matter what. And it's not all sexism, it's not all people coming in and who are just angry about it being women. But I do have to point out, those people do exist. And you're never gonna win those people over. But if someone's gonna be angry at a film just because it stars all women, then screw them. Don't try and win them over. Who needs them? But as I said, there are other people out there who are just going to be angry at this forever, and it's just simply because they're messing with a thing from their childhood that they really care about. And I can kind of understand that. But I myself personally, I'm coming in right down the middle on this. I see a lot of stuff in there that has me concerned. Like I said, I don't think any of those trailers are really that good. However, the director of this film, he's kind of known for not having good trailers. Each of his films have kind of gotten bad trailers that had people really concerned about them, but then they were all really well reviewed. I did not see Spy, but everybody tells me that's great. Like, even people I know who hated his first film, Bridesmaids, came out of Spy saying, this film is amazing. And as for Bridesmaids itself, I did see that one, and I walked out of it going, you know what? I thought it was just okay. I didn't absolutely love it, but I can see why people love it. A lot of the humor in there just wasn't for me. It just wasn't my type of humor. It just wasn't the type of humor that I myself personally enjoy, but I can understand people enjoying that type of humor. And looking at a lot of the jokes in these trailers, I kind of get a similar feeling. I kind of get a similar feeling that maybe this guy's sense of humor just isn't my sense of humor. But as I said, when I saw Bridesmaids, I was able to understand why people would find that humor funny. I almost said why people would find that humor humorous. So I'm hoping that I'm able to go into this film and do the same. That's what I'm going to try and do. I fully realize that the film that I'm about to watch is not Ghostbusters. It's not the Ghostbusters that I love. It's not the Ghostbusters that I grew up with. It's not the one that I have an attachment to. However, I can't just sit there for 2 hours going, oh, these aren't the characters I like. Oh, that joke would have been in the first film. This is its own thing. Even though it's called Ghostbusters, which honestly, that's something else that kind of upsets me, is that if you're going to remake something but then remake it totally differently, it's like, why not just create a brand new franchise? Like, if you made these ghosts like science experiments or mutants or aliens or something, it's like, you could have had a brand new franchise on your hands that people would have loved. But I don't know, that's an argument for another day. But I'm going to go into this film and judge it as its own thing, because I fully understand this is going to be completely different. That thing that I love, it's in the past. It's gone. I can go and watch it whenever I want on DVD. This is not it. It's going to be its own thing, so I'm going to judge this as its own thing. These are brand new characters, so I'm going to try and judge these characters as who they are. This is a totally different style of humor, so I'm going to judge these jokes. And if it's not my style of humor, then I will try and look at and understand why people would enjoy this type of humor, just like I did with Bridesmaids. And also, as I said, it's going for a more superhero vibe, which, yes, I will admit, I don't want the Ghostbusters to be portrayed as superheroes, but if that is what they're going for in this film, I will judge how well it succeeds. I fully realize that this is not that Ghostbusters that I grew up with. It's going to be totally different, and I have to judge it as what it is. I have to judge it as something that is totally different. So that's the mindset that I'm going into this film with, and I just want to make a video explaining that to everyone, and also explaining where I come from on this film. And if you guys want to see my review and my post-Geekout reaction for it, which will be coming up this weekend, then make sure that you click on that subscribe button. And I'm probably going to regret saying this, but let me know how you feel about this movie before you go in and see it down in the comments below. Let me know what your feelings are before you go into it. And let's all just be civilized. Let's all just act like adults on this one. If you see a comment down there that you disagree with, you don't have to respond. You can just post your own comment. You don't have to start dragging other people down with you. If you see people with different opinions from you, that's perfectly fine. Everybody comes from a different place on this. They all have their own opinions, and they're all entitled to that opinion. So don't come in here and just be a jerk to other people in the comment section because they feel a different way than you do on this film. Just let me know in the comments how you feel, and if you want to try and start a civilized discussion with someone down there, then go for it. I know I am asking way too much of a YouTube comment section, but I've got pretty smart fans. I've got a pretty smart audience. You guys are pretty good in the comment section, so I'm gonna trust you guys to watch after yourselves on this one. I'm gonna lose like all my subs after this. I know I am. We were so close to 10,000 too. All right, but thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned. Bye.